Miss Lonely Hearts and the Cripple. Miss Lonely Hearts dodged Betty because she made him feel ridiculous. He was still trying to cling to his humility, and the farther he got below self-laughter, the easier it was for him to practice it. When Betty telephoned, he refused to answer, and after he had twice failed to call her back, she left him alone. One day, about a week after he had returned from the country, Goldsmith asked him out for a drink. When he accepted, he made himself so humble that Goldsmith was frightened and almost suggested a doctor. They found Shrike and Delahanty's and joined him at the bar. Goldsmith tried to whisper something to him about Miss Lonely Heart's condition, but he was drunk and he refused to listen. He caught only part of what Goldsmith was trying to say. "I must differ with you, my good Goldsmith," Shrike said. "Don't call sick those who have faith. They are the well. It is you who are sick." Goldsmith did not reply, and Shrike turned to Miss Lonely Hearts. "Come, tell us, brother, how was it that you first came to believe? Was it music in a church, or the death of a loved one, or mayhap some wise old priest?" The familiar jokes no longer had any effect on Miss Lonely Hearts. He smiled at Shrike as the saints are supposed to have smiled at those about to martyr them. "Ah, how stupid of me," Shrike continued. "It was the letters, of course. Did I myself not say that the Miss Lonely Hearts are the priests of the 20th century America?" Goldsmith laughed, and Shrike, in order to keep him laughing, used an old trick. He appeared to be offended. "Goldsmith, you are the nasty product of this unbelieving age. You cannot believe, you can only laugh. You take everything with a bag of salt and forget that salt is the enemy of fire as well as of ice. Be warned, the salt you use is not attic salt. It is a coarse butcher's salt. It doesn't preserve, it kills." The bartender, who was standing close by, broke in to address Miss Lonely Hearts. "Pardon me, sir, but there's a gent here named Doyle who wants to meet with you. He says you know his wife." Before Miss Lonely Hearts could reply, he beckoned to someone standing at the other end of the bar. The signal was answered by a little cripple who immediately started in their direction. He used a cane and dragged one of his feet behind him in a box-shaped shoe with a 4-inch sole. As he hobbled along, he made many waist motions like those of a partially destroyed insect. The bartender introduced the cripple as Mr. Peter Doyle. Doyle was very excited and shook hands twice all around, then with a wave that was meant to be sporting, called for a round of drinks. Before lifting his glass, Shrike carefully inspected the cripple. When he had finished, he winked at Miss Lonely Hearts and said, "Here's to humanity." He patted Doyle on the back. "Mankind, mankind," he sighed, wagging his head sadly. What is man that—" The bartender broke in again on behalf of his friend and tried to change the conversation to familiar ground. "Mr. Doyle inspects meters for the gas company." "An excellent job it must be," Shrike said. "He should be able to give us the benefit of a different viewpoint. We newspaper men are limited in many ways, and I like to hear both sides of a case." Doyle had been staring at Miss Lonely Hearts as though searching for something, but he now turned to Shrike and tried to be agreeable. "You know what people say, Mr. Shrike?" No, my good man. What is it that people say?" "Everybody's got a frigid air nowadays, and they say we meter inspectors take the place of the Iceman in the stories." He tried, rather diffidently, to leer. "What?" Shrike roared at him. "I can see, sir, that you are not the man for us. You know nothing about humanity. You are humanity. I leave you to Miss Lonely Hearts." He called to Goldsmith and stalked away. The cripple was confused and angry. And by the way, we've heard that line. Yes, you are humanity. Oh, repetition, repetition. "Your friend is a nut," he said. Miss Lonely Hearts was still smiling, but the character of his smile had changed. It had become full of sympathy and a little sad. The new smile was for Doyle, and he knew it, and he smiled back gracefully. "Oh, I forgot," Doyle said. "The wife asked me if I bumped into you to ask you to our house to eat. That's why I made Jake introduce us." This is the crippled husband of Miss Lonely Hearts, one of the people who wrote into him, who he wound up having a relationship with. Miss Lonely Hearts was busy with a smile and accepted without thinking of the evening he had spent with Mrs. Doyle. The cripple felt honored and shook hands for a third time. It was evidently his only social gesture. After a few more drinks, when Doyle said that he was tired, Miss Lonely Hearts suggested that they go into the back room. They found a table and sat opposite each other. The cripple had a very strange face. His eyes failed to balance. His mouth was not under his nose. His forehead was square and bony, and his round chin was like a forehead in miniature. He looked like one of those composite photographs used by screen magazines in guessing contests. They sat staring at each other until the strain of wordless communication began to excite them both. Doyle made vague, needless adjustments to his clothing. Miss Lonely Hearts found it very difficult to keep his smile steady. When the cripple finally labored into speech, Miss Lonely Hearts was unable to understand him. He listened hard for a few minutes and realized that Doyle was making no attempt to be understood. He was giving birth to groups of words that lived inside of him as things, a jumble of the retorts he had meant to make when insulted and the private curses against fate that experience had taught him to swallow. Like a priest, Miss Lonelyhearts turned his face slightly away. He watched the play of the cripple's hands. At first they conveyed nothing but excitement, then gradually they became pictorial. They lagged behind to illustrate a matter with which he was already finished, or ran ahead to illustrate something he had not yet begun to talk about. As he grew more articulate, his hands stopped trying to aid his speech and began to dart in and out of his clothing. One of them suddenly emerged from a pocket of his coat, dragged some sheets of letter paper. He forced these on Miss Lonelyhearts. Dear Miss Lonelyhearts, I am kind of ashamed to write you because a man like me don't take stock in things like that, but my wife told me you were a man and not some dopey woman, so I thought I'd write to you after reading your answer to Disillusioned. This is the spurned husband writing a letter to his wife's lover. His wife, after all, was disillusioned. I am a cripple, 41 years of age, which I have been all my life, and I have never let myself get blue until lately, when I have been feeling lousy all the time on account of not getting anywhere and asking myself what is it all for. You have an education, so I figured maybe you know. What I want to know is why I go around pulling my leg up and down stairs reading meters for the gas company for a stinking $22.50 per, while the bosses ride around in swell cars living off the fat of the land. Don't think I'm a greasy red. I read where they shoot cripples in Russia because they can't work, but I can work better than any park bum and support a wife and child too. But that's not what I'm writing you about. What I want to know is, what is it all for? By pulling my goddamn leg around the streets and down in stinking cellars, with it all the time hurting, fit to burst, so that near quitting time I'm crazy with pain, and when I get home all I hear is money, money, which ain't no home for a man like me. What I want to know is, what in hell is the use day after day with a foot like mine when you have to go around pulling and scrambling for a lousy 3 squares with a toothache in it that comes from using the foot so much? The doctor told me I ought to rest it for 6 months, but who will pay me when I am resting it? But that ain't what I mean either, because you might tell me to change my job, and where could I get another one? I am lucky to have one at all. It ain't the job that I am complaining about, but what I want to know is, what is the whole stinking business for? Please write me an answer, not in the paper because my wife reads your stuff and I don't want her to know I wrote you because I always said the paper is crap. But I figured maybe you know something about it because you have read a lot of books and I never finished high. Yours truly, Peter Doyle. While Miss Lonelyhearts was puzzling on the crabbed writing, Doyle's damp hand accidentally touched his under the table. He jerked it away, but then drove his hand back and forced it to clasp the cripple's. After finishing the letter, he did not let go, but pressed it firmly with all the love he could manage. At first the cripple covered his embarrassment by disguising the meaning of the clasp with a handshake, but he soon gave in to it, and they sat silently, hand in hand.